We did Michelangelo for our project, and this project was done by Group 4. Here is some information about Michelangelo's background.
Michelangelo was born on March 6, 1475, in the small village of Caprese. He was placed in the care of a nanny because of his mother's illness. The nanny's husband was a stonecutter, which sparked Michelangelo's love for marble. His mother died when he was 6 years old. When he was 13, Michelangelo's father, who was a government official, realized his passion for art and sent him to apprentice in the studio of Domenico Ghirlandaio, in which he became one of the top 2 students, which led him to attend the Medici family Humanist Academy. He then studied under famous sculptor Bertoldo di Giovanni.
For his early training and studies, Michelangelo started his schooling career in a grammar school that his father enrolled him in, but he never had any interest in any of the subjects other than art. When he was 13 years old, he became an apprentice for the Renaissance artist Domenico Ghirlandaio, showing that he had much promise for the future of his career. When he was working under Ghirlandaio, he was one of 2 students chosen by him to attend Lorenzo de' Medici's Florence Humanist Academy, where he studied under one of Donatello's former students, Bertoldo di Giovanni. After de' Medici's death in 1942, Michelangelo got special permission to study and dissect cadavers in the Church of Santo Spirito to further his understanding of the human body. And after his anatomy studies, Michelangelo concluded his formal schooling and continued to work as an artist and sculptor.
After learning about Michelangelo's background, here is a general artwork analysis.
Features. One of the most noticeable features of Michelangelo's works include the incorporation of the human body in many of his paintings. And most of all, his sculptures are of human figures. And almost all of them that are sculptures are of the human form. His sculptures included many marble statues, mainly focusing on human interactions, such as ones between religious figures or well-known historical figures. His large paintings consisted of many frescoes, a type of fresh painting that uses watercolor to soak into wet plaster. He also has a foothold in architecture world, with an interest in many Renaissance styles and of arches and building styles, such as column work, domes, arches with points, and expansion of natural light into large chambers.
Michelangelo utilized a wide array of skills and techniques in order to create his sculptures, paintings, and architecture. For his sculptures, Michelangelo preferred the subtractive method, or the use of a mallet and chisels to create a figure from a marble block. This is often regarded as one of the most difficult sculpting methods, as it requires a great deal of precision and dedication. An example of this can be seen on the right with Michelangelo's piece, The Awakening Giant. Although Michelangelo primarily considered himself a sculptor, he is equally recognized for his impressive fresco paintings. Michelangelo preferred fresco pigment, or water-based pigments painted on plaster, as opposed to oil for its ability to create strong outlines. Finally, Michelangelo incorporated a mixture of Mannerist style in his architecture, or the style that is characterized by a divergence from Renaissance and medieval styles, which exaggerates proportion and balance. An example of this can be seen in the Laurentian Library on the right. The concepts of Michelangelo's works tended to focus on the human form and its relationship with the spiritual realm. Michelangelo often placed an emphasis on the human form as an embodiment of the soul, and it was his goal to represent the human form as realistically as possible. To do this, he utilized light and shadow to define the form and shape of his sculptures, as well as crisp colors mixed with black and white to develop a wide range of contrast and help achieve depth in his paintings. He primarily centered his pieces around a mixture of Greek and Roman mythology with traditional Christian scenes. An example of this is his fresco, The Last Judgment, which depicts the second coming of Christ with references to Greek mythology, including specific mythological figures.
All right, philosophies. Michelangelo in his later years began to write poems that gave more insight on his philosophical beliefs. Many incorporated the idea of Neoplatonism. From the 1530s through his entire life, Michelangelo wrote poems. Only 300 of those are recovered. Of those 300, many showed and incorporated the beliefs of Neoplatonism. Neoplatonism is the idea that a human soul powered by love and ecstasy can reunite with an almighty God. Basically, they believed that human happiness and perfection were attainable in the world without awaiting an afterlife, and all people returned to the one they came from, in our case, God. This could be achieved through contemplation. He was taught this method as an adolescent living in the Lorenzo de' Medici household.
Michelangelo utilized a vast number of mediums in his artworks instead of specializing in just one, as many artists do. His primary mediums were sculpture and painting. Within sculpture, he used marble, which was his most frequent sculpture medium, as used in David, bronze, polychrome wood, wax, clay, and more. Within painting, he used tempera, oil, and fresco, which was his most frequently used, and used in the creation of David and the Last Judgment. He also combined mediums such as oil and tempera in his painting The Torment of St. Anthony, pictured on this side.
Michelangelo used a lot of themes in his artworks. However, during the Renaissance period, he utilized two of the most prominent themes during this time, which was individualism and humanism. Individualism is the belief that the man has the ability to reach his full potential based on his talents. This theme was really important during this period because it portrayed mankind more prominently rather than the gods. An example would be the detail on Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel painting, which exemplifies his own very individualism. Another theme would be humanism, which is the idea that mankind has the ability to take control of his own destiny. In art, it was really important to be accurate on the anatomical structure as well as being detailed. Michelangelo's Pieta shows extreme details in the folds of Mary's dress as well as an accurate measurement of their anatomical structures. Some more examples of Michelangelo's artworks, especially of his mediums and concepts, would be the creation of Adam, where fresco was used, as well as Christian themes, which depicts a biblical story. Another example would be the Last Judgment, which is also known as the Sistine Chapel painting, and the mediums and concepts used was fresco, as well as Christian themes and allusions to Greek mythology. Another last additional example would be David, which is actually a sculpture that Michelangelo created, and mediums and concepts used was marble, as well as Christian themes. The Christian theme for this sculpture was that David is a biblical figure.
Michelangelo influenced not only the Renaissance, but many more aspects of society even today. In television, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles character was named after the artist. In psychology, the Michelangelo phenomenon was introduced, referring to the way those in individual close relationships sculpt each other's manners, which draw out aspects of their ideal selves. In science, there is a prosthetic hand named after him. And in film, there were several films depicting his life and works, including the 1965 film The Agony and the Ecstasy. His works still remain renowned and of great cultural and historical importance. For example, the Sistine Chapel gets close to 20,000 tourists a day in the summer to see his works.
Here are some additional resources to look at to find out more information about Michelangelo. There are a couple of YouTube video links that you can find about Michelangelo, such as Michelangelo and the Science of Fresco Painting and Carving Marble with Traditional Tools. The third link is history.com, which gives you more information about the Renaissance period during Michelangelo's time. In addition, the next link gives a good description about how Michelangelo went to school and more about his background. And lastly, the last link gives you more information about Michelangelo's influence today.